Welcome to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast, empowering you to take a whole person approach to your well-being, spirit, soul, and body. Join me, your host, Dr. Ana Lara, naturopathic doctor, entrepreneur, and a servant of Jesus Christ. We are not just a body, we are spirit and soul. It's time to integrate medicine and spirituality into our healing. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you haven't seen the first episode, you'd want to go back and take a look at that and listen, because it talks about the purpose of this podcast. Today's episode is going to be the foundations of health and wellness. So one of the things that I always like, I'm going to talk to you as if you're my patient, because I'm just used to having those conversations with my patients all the time, right? So I always like to start off by defining the difference between being healthy and being well, because there's two different things. There could be a person that's healthy, and what that means is that there's no medical diagnosis assigned to them yet. But there could be underlying risk factors that is leading them to a state of disease, right? So I want to define what disease means. If you separate the word DIS, it means to separate, take apart. So what it means is that you are without ease. The body is without ease. The same goes for dysfunction. You're set apart from function. You don't have proper function. And disorder, once again, you separate the dis part in order, you're without order. So when we have no ease, no order, and not proper function, we're not healthy. And some people do not have a medical diagnosis assigned to them, but it doesn't mean that they're healthy or they're well. Okay, so healthy is just being without a medical diagnosis, like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or thyroid disorders. That's having a disease state. Wellness is a step beyond being healthy, because if you have a 25-year-old person who doesn't have any medical conditions, but they're eating out every day, they're drinking tons of soda, they're not exercising, they're just laying around, they're not sleeping enough hours, constantly in chronic stress, they're not well. That is not wellness. It is a matter of time that their unhealthy behaviors and lifestyle will lead them to being unhealthy. So that's the difference between health and wellness. Now, you can have medical conditions, right, and that you're managing well, but you're doing all the lifestyle modifications. Then you can still be in a state of wellness because you're balancing everything out. So life is about balance. And if I can get young people to hear that, take it from people who've lived a little bit longer than you, the mistakes that they've made is that they've cut corners in these areas, or they haven't given it the necessary attention that they need to give these areas of their life. So I'm going to talk to you about the 4 pillars of health. So what are they, right? I want you to imagine a table that has 4 legs. If one of those legs is shorter than the other, you're going to have a wobbly table. It's not even. And nobody wants to sit at a wobbly table. I'm glad that this table is, stable and steady because it has stable legs. And that's how we need to look at these 4 pillars of health. The first, I'm going to mention all 4, and then I'm going to go through them individually, but future shows, we're going to talk about them in even more detail. So the 4 pillars of health are nutrition, physical activity, or we call it exercise, sleep, and stress management. So when we talk about nutrition, I'm not talking about a fad diet. There's so many fad diets out there that are trendy. I'm talking about the way you eat and making sure that it's a balanced, nutrition that you have throughout the day. Oftentimes in my practice, what I find is that people are not eating enough. They're not eating at the right times that they need to eat according to their lifestyle and the demands that they have on them. They're skipping out on breakfast. They're having maybe 1 or 2 meals a day, and it's really late in the day, in the evening, right, at nighttime. And so in the daytime, they're running without fuel. Like if you were to get into your vehicle and drive from, one city to another and not fuel your vehicle, you wouldn't make it. But the body has this resiliency in this way to continue to function whether you feed it or not. However, it comes with a price that it's going to compromise other organs and other systems. And within time, these behaviors that happen consistently, it will develop into disease. So nutrition is very important. So, like I said, in a future episode, we're really going to dive deep into nutrition. But this is very important because what we eat, these are the building blocks of all the processes that are happening in our body. Proteins are the building blocks to our muscles, our bones, and organs, and hormones, and neurotransmitters. And, we need carbohydrates that have all the vitamins and minerals to fuel those other processes. And so it's really important that we identify what is a healthy meal in a world right now where there's a million types of diets, right? What I want you to identify for yourself is, what is the diet that you need to be eating? What is the diet that you do best? Not the one that your friend does or what everyone is trending to do right now. Part of nutrition is also hydration. A lot of people do not drink enough water. Like I live in Arizona, right? It's hot here. And you'd be surprised how many people are walking around dehydrated because they're not consuming enough water. The quality of water matters also. So nutrition is one of the most important pillars, I always say. 80-90% of a person's health, healthy, successful outcome in their health is going to be based on nutrition. What are you eating? We are what we eat, after all. And so there's many different types of foods that can be very healing and preventing disease as well. Like I said, future talks, we're gonna go into the nutrition part. The other pillar, the second pillar, is this physical activity that we call exercise. So I'm talking about continuous physical activity for 20, 30 minutes a day that you're continuously exerting yourself. And the importance of physical exercise, it's not just appearance. Physical activity is medicine for the body. When you're moving, your blood flow is circulating much more. You're getting more oxygen into your blood because you're inhaling and exhaling waste. So there's a detox process that's happening when you exercise. It enhances your mood. It gives you more energy. And so it does also help your immune system to keep it on its toes so that you don't get sick as often. So physical activity is something that is so important. Right now in today's time, I tell patients that sitting is the new smoking. We sit so long, so much, some more than others, and that's not okay because we need our blood and lymphatic system to be constantly moving. And so get up and move your body. God created the body to move. It gave it a nervous system to tell the muscles what to do. Muscles are attached to bones to make the body move. We need to move our bodies. The third pillar, sleep. Oh man, I see so many people that are sleeping like 3 or 4 hours. I don't know how people function with 3 or 4 hours. If I don't get my 8 hours of sleep, maybe 1 or 2 days without sleeping those, I'll be fine. But if I consistently go on without sleeping 8 hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours, my mental health is not good. I don't feel well. My brain doesn't function the same way. And so sleep is one of those times that when we are resting at night, our bodies are regenerating, they're recovering. There's a lot of processes that are happening during this time. And while we sleep, we're preserving energy on other things so that it gives the body the energy to process these detoxes, these regenerations that is happening while we sleep. A lot of hormones and neurotransmitters are happening during this time. They're optimizing. And if we're not sleeping, we won't heal. So for example, people who come in who have chronic conditions, whether it's cancer or autoimmune conditions, one of the very first things I ask is, or that I want to make sure that they're on, is that they're sleeping well. So I'll ask them, how many hours are you sleeping? They're like 3 hours, and it's all interrupted. Well, I know that person is going to take longer to heal and recover. So my goal is to get them to sleep longer. I am not for the mindset of cutting and cheating yourself out of sleep for you to be successful. I did that when I was younger. And when you go through medical school or, programs that demand a lot of you, times in your life that demand a lot of you, it really ages you and it affects you so much on a physiological level. So sleep is medicine. I have a sign in my office that says sleep is my true love because if I sleep well, I'm a happy human being and I could conquer the world. But without this factor, you just can't function. And there's nothing that substitutes sleep. There's not a nerve, there's not a pill that can make up for lack of sleep. You just got to do it. Stress management is the fourth pillar. I joke around with my patients and I tell them, if we don't do anything about this constant chronic stress, you might as well have the cheeseburger and fries. Because when we are in chronic stress, there's a difference between having some stress and having high levels of chronic stress. To some degree, stress is normal and we need stress. If we didn't have stress in our lives, we would just sit around and do nothing, right? So stress in a way motivates us and gets us going in life. However, when you have a lot going on in your life, personally, socially, financially, health-wise, at your work, a lot of people have work stress and they carry it all day. I mean, we're there 8-10 hours a day. You're living with these people most of the time. So the people you work with can sometimes create super high stress response in you. But it's our responsibility to learn different tools and different ways to manage that stress so our nervous system isn't constantly thinking that it's running and fighting something. So our nervous system is made up of, we have two components. We have the parasympathetic state, which is the rest state. We're resting, we're peaceful, we're calm. This is the time when we're sleeping. When we're eating, we should be in a rest state so we can digest our food well. And the other component is this sympathetic state, which is your fight and flight state. Most people are stuck on sympathetic. They're either running from something or they're fighting something. And when you're constantly responding to life that way, your hormones are going to be, you're creating different hormones, whether it's high cortisol, epinephrine, your adrenaline, right? You're creating different hormones to get you going through that situation. So these high stress hormones in your body will cause inflammation, and inflammation is the beginning stages of all disease. It all starts with inflammation. If you have chronic pain, there's inflammation. If you have an autoimmune condition, there's inflammation. Cancer, it's inflammation. You have a virus or bacteria, there's an inflammatory response, because inflammation is a way that it alerts your immune system to say, hey, we need some attention here. So a lot of people are functioning throughout their day, every day, for months and years, right, in high levels of stress. And this not only affects them personally, right, their physical well-being and mental, emotional well-being, but it starts to spill over into their relationships, and it starts to affect them in a relational way as well. So these are the 4 pillars that I always start with all my patients to address. Now, there are some other areas that are very important to health as well. These are not the only things, but these are those 4 legs to the table that I need to make sure that they understand. We got to address these 4 areas. So we're going to do something about it. There's going to be an action plan for the nutrition, so a meal plan for you. Physical activity, I don't care. If you can only walk 5 minutes, then walk 5 minutes, but do it every day and increase your time from there, because you got to start somewhere. Sleep, let's get you some tools, some things to help you get to sleep. Is it because you physiologically can't get yourself to sleep? Or is it behavior? Is it that you're staying up on your phone, watching TV, on your computer, working late, and you're just not going to bed? So there's some behavior things that entail the sleep component. And then stress, oftentimes I have to add some nice herbal combinations of some supplements that can help them first regulate their stress physiologically. And then from there, we talk about different techniques to manage that stress. But some other areas that I want to address that are important when it comes to health and wellness, one of them is community and connection. In America, we're starting to get around to realizing that community and connection is really important. I have had the pleasure of visiting, some countries in South America and Central America where these communities, they live by the rainforest. They don't have anything modern. And one of the things that you see is that these people are happy, they're healthy, they eat well, they're moving their body, they're sleeping with the rhythms of nature, right? And they don't have the stress that we carry. And the other component is that they make community time. They make time to spend with family and their neighbors. And this community is really important, this connection. We have to connect more than virtually. We need to make that in-person intent to connect with people. It helps us to have someone to talk to when you're going through challenging times, right? And then the other is, spiritual connection. There's, once again, people walk around with their phone, making sure they're connected to Wi-Fi, making sure their phone is charged. But what are you doing for your soul, for your spirit, to make sure that you're spiritually connected? And this is a topic that we'll go into later because I can spend too much time on this episode talking on that, but we'll address and touch on these things later. And then the other important, very, very, very important component to healing that I ask all of my patients, men, women, I don't care if they're young or older, because I see the trend of where some of the roots of disease come from. I will ask about trauma. If it's physical trauma, mental, emotional trauma, sexual trauma, I want to know how was your life growing up? What were you like as a child? What are some of those traumatic events that happened in your life? Because this does, the responses you had then have a lot to say about how you respond now in life. And oftentimes I see that the root causes came from when they were after a very stressful event in their life, right? That after that event, they did not feel well, but they just pushed through and they just kept going. And then they developed disease years later. So one of the things I want to talk about is how I work with people is I talk about peeling back each layer. We talk about trauma, how do you eat? How much are you eating? Physical activity, sleep, stress management. What kind of water are you drinking? Do you drink water? I have had people disclose to me, I don't drink water. I either drink nothing but tea, which is good, but your body still needs water, or soda or coffee. So we address what's most urgent with the person and start to peel back those layers. Because if it's trauma and they have a lot of physical symptoms, you can't start addressing trauma when they're physically not well. But once people start to physically feel well, they immediately notice that, oh, I mentally feel better. I emotionally feel more regulated. And that's great because now this gives them an opportunity to start talking about those deeper wounds and find healing in these deeper wounds. So this is just, like I said, the foundations of health and wellness. Every future episode from this point on, we're going to take each of these topics and we're going to dive deep into them with very specific details. So you want to make sure you stay tuned for those and take a lot of notes, because it's like if you and I were sitting down in my office, this is educational information for you to take. I do want to disclose that everything I share on this podcast, it is for educational purposes. I don't know what your medical conditions are. So either reach out to your doctor, or if you have questions, you can always reach out to me as well if you're interested in learning how to work with me. We're going to go into our segment of the good, the bad, and the ugly about our current medical system. You know, the words heal and cure are dirty words to doctors. If you ask a medical doctor, can I heal this? Can I cure through this? They're going to say no. They don't believe in healing and curing. It's just not a word that they use or refer to. And the reason is because in the paradigm of conventional medicine, they don't heal and they don't cure. They manage disease. That's what they do. They manage disease. But I want to tell you that there are many conditions that you can completely heal and recover from. And it has to do with addressing those 4 pillars of health and wellness. I can keep talking on and on about these things, but like I said, we're going to talk about these other topics in a much broader sense in future segments. So I want to thank you for joining me today and getting yourself a little immersed in those foundations of health and why they're so important. I want to make sure you stay tuned to our next episode, because the next episode is going to be on nutrition. And what do you need to eat to be healthy, right? We're going to dispel many myths, and we're going to talk about what do you need to be eating so that you can stay healthy. Hey, thank you for joining me on this podcast. I hope you guys are blessed. Thank you for listening to Physician Heal Thyself, the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Help this message reach more people who may need to hear it. Leave your comments. I want to know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about Raices, visit our website at raicesndmedcenter.com. Until next time, be blessed.